So, $1 million question. What have you been up to since we last spoke?
Right? Oh man, so much. Um, Man, I don't even know, but I've been seeing clients still, right? So I'm still a psychotherapist. I'm working in New Jersey. Um, One of the biggest things that I've been up to is that I just recently finished a self-care workbook journal for entrepreneurs. The audience is for entrepreneurs. So it is to help them overcome self-doubt.
Congratulations. That is big news. Let me see that. Hold on. Put it back in the camera, please. Let's see that for a couple of seconds.
So I wrote all over it. It's a manuscript.
That's okay.
Yeah.
There you go, everyone. You guys saw it first, okay? Right here.
My rough manuscript that I'm writing over. But yes.
How does it feel to do that?
Oh, it was healing. It was wonderful. It was a therapeutic process for sure. As a therapist, I'm always telling people to journal. People think like, usually I get negative responses from my clients because they're like, oh, I want to write. What am I write? Just write about all my negative thoughts? Right? And I encourage them to, yes, in fact, that's what I want you to write about. But not just that. I think people, so journaling is anything that you can write out, right? So people assume that journaling is, you have to have a lot to write about, but you really don't. It can be as simple as just writing today in one simple thought. Affirmations.
I know you mentioned that before when we first spoke, and it's still very, very important to me. And people need to do it. It's one thing to have all these thoughts in your mind because, let's be honest, our minds are a crazy, busy, sometimes dangerous place. And I think if we can put it to paper, we can realize that, oh my goodness, am I thinking that? Right?
Yes, exactly. There's this exercise that's in the journal that's called the stream of consciousness. And it's people who constantly have worry in their mind. They wake up and it's like, oh, I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to make sure the kids are good. Oh, I got to go to the grocery store. And it doesn't seem to stop, right? So there's this technique where when you wake up, you simply sit, you gather your thoughts, and you grab your journal, and everything that comes to your mind, you just write it out. It's a stream of consciousness. It doesn't need to make sense, but it just needs to be written out. And that is a way to help relieve stress, to get some of that stuff out of your head.
Do you find that the reason why it's difficult for some people to do that is because you're vulnerable publicly, meaning on the paper instead of in the secrecy of our mind?
That's good. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, some people are vulnerable, right? Some people don't want, it's like a diary, right? You don't want people to see what your thoughts are, or maybe you're even afraid of your thoughts. But when you get it out there, you have to face the truth, right? That's the healing process. And sometimes you're not always in that mind frame. So I think it's important to document it. So when you go back and look at the things that you wrote and the date, you can say to yourself, man, I was really not in a good place. Or man, I was really happy. What can I do to get that joy back? What was going on in my life? So it makes you do your evaluation of yourself.
I think that is so important because there's some people close to me recently that have been suffering breakdowns. Their mental fitness is not what it was a year ago, much less even 2.5 years ago before all of this, right? So when you mention that, it really touches me in a way that is important because I absolutely agree that we need to not be afraid of being vulnerable. I can understand if someone were to get your journal and you want to chase after them, because like, oh no, don't read my my private thoughts, right? Because it could be scary. But where else? If you can't trust the pen and the pad, I guess the next best person would be to trust someone like yourself who can help them along the way. Now that you're still doing that, which is something that I love to hear, how much further along are you now in your journey to help others?
So now I am trained to treat trauma. So I do EMDR therapy. Yay! Yes. So that is a different type of technique, which, what's his name? Prince Harry talked about it, using EMDR therapy to help him get over the trauma that he had with losing his mom, right? And it's a evidence-based treatment that addresses trauma. It kind of have you deal with those areas that get you to feel the negative impacts in the body, because trauma, the body keeps the score, right? That's a book. It's a really good book called Trauma, the Body Keeps the Score. And so the reason why people say that is because when you live in trauma and you have all this history of things, you don't realize the physical ailments that it puts on your body, because the mind, body, and soul is all connected. And when trauma happens, that impact in the brain is still there. So those triggers, so there's things that can trigger you about an event. So for instance, if you got in a car accident, if someone brakes heavy on the brake, you may all of a sudden get really frustrated, irritated, or really angry. And you don't really know where that comes from. So it lashes out in different ways, or, you can't deal with other people driving, and maybe, the significant other is like, what is your problem? Why do you have this road rage, right? And you get so used to living that way that you don't even understand that that's because of the trauma. So now you have a technique that can address that and to get you to live a life, not that you're going to forget, because that's not what EMDR does, but it makes your body and it makes you feel more easy to deal with life and the triggers that you cannot control.